Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. It's no secret, Atmos has become a hot topic these days, especially in the pro audio world where so many things are being remixed for Atmos or created specifically to be mixed in Atmos. And boy, once you've heard an Atmos mix in true multi-channel, it's really hard to go back to stereo. It's super exciting and also very inspiring to have that whole new creative palette to work with. There's also been a little bit of a barrier to entry there in that most of the Atmos studios that you see online in articles or in videos or whatever there's a price of entry to get to many of those studios. So we put a challenge to ourselves. Could we put together a true multi-channel Atmos mixing rig for $2,000? Let's find out. Now, of course, you've got to have a room, and there are requirements if you want to be Dolby certified, but we're not going to get too deep into that in this video. What we're concerned with is really putting together a system that's affordable that'll let us get started making Atmos mixes. So that really comes down to the gear. And of course, when we're talking about Atmos, that really means speakers. There are several ways you can set up an Atmos system. It's very scalable. You can go all the way up to a 9.1.6 system, which would mean 9 surround speakers, a subwoofer, and 6 height speakers. You can actually do even more than that for a true theater level mixing situation. But you could actually start lower than that and scale your way back up by adding additional speakers along the way. For example, you could start with a 5.1.2 system, where you have 5 speakers arrayed around you for the surround, 2 height speakers, and a subwoofer channel. For this video, we decided to go with a 7.1.2 rig. That means 7 surround speakers, a subwoofer for LFE or low frequency effects, and then 2 height speakers. We found that those extra surrounds make more difference than the extra 2 height speakers as far as getting started making your Atmos mixes. And then of course, as you go along, later you can add more height speakers, more surround speakers, more subwoofers, so you can continue to expand the system, but we want to provide a real solid base here that we can build from for our $2,000. So what we've got are 7 surround speakers, and those will be left, right, center, side, and rear speakers that are all set at ear level. And those are sort of our base level surround mixing speakers. And then you'd have anywhere from 2 to 6. We're going to go with 2 height speakers, which are overhead. In addition, you need to have a subwoofer for LFE or low frequency effects. Now you can also use that subwoofer for bass management, but in particular you want to have it as a dedicated low frequency source. Now to drive all those speakers, you need to have an audio interface that has at least as many outputs as you have speakers. So in our case, with 7 surrounds, a subwoofer, and 2 heights, we need 10 speakers. We also, of course, need a computer, we need software to drive that, and fortunately, many of the DAWs these days actually are already supporting Dolby Atmos built in. So Pro Tools, Studio One, Cubase Nuendo, and others all have a built-in Dolby renderer and are pretty much ready to go out of the box. They even come with Atmos or immersive plugins as part of their complement of effects that are included with the package when you purchase it. Now, if you're using another DAW that doesn't have built-in Dolby renderer support, you can purchase the optional Dolby renderer that way, and it works just fine as well. Now, of course, you're going to need cables and accessories and all those little things that go into making the system actually work. But one thing we highly recommend as an integral part of this whole Atmos system is Sonarworks Reference ID multi-channel. This software allows you to calibrate your system, basically, to set it up so that it works optimally. We're not going to be quite Dolby compliant, but we'll be much closer if we use Sonarworks, as we'll see when we get further into this video. Now, we spent hours poring through Sweetwater.com to find an array of gear that we could use that would give us a workable Atmos rig, but still stay within our $2,000 budget. And here's where we landed, and just a couple of side notes. We didn't include the computer in our budget because we assume you'll probably have that. And we also didn't include stands, although we've got Gator framework stands that we're using here for this video. The reason we didn't include those stands is because there are so many options, and also many of us working in this sort of a budget will be doing DIY for mounting our speakers. So we want to give you the option to do that outside the budget. Other than that, we're assuming that we're starting completely from scratch. For our audio interface, we chose the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20G3. This interface offers 10 analog outputs, so it'll drive all our speakers, including our subwoofer, and of course it also has inputs and all the features that we need to have it serve as the heart of our system. For our monitors, we chose Mackie CRX3X both for our surround speakers and for our 2 overhead or height speakers. Now these monitors are 3-inch compact 2-way monitors. The amplification is in one of the monitors, and then you connect 2 of them together using a speaker wire, so they're very convenient to set up. They have frequency response from 70 Hz to 20 kHz, so they give us a great base to build from in our system. And speaking of bass, we're also including the Mackie CR6X subwoofer. This is a 6.5-inch downfiring subwoofer. It ranges from 40 hertz to 200 hertz and gives us very solid low end to use for that LFE, that dedicated bass response that we need to have from our system. We're wiring everything together with Proco Excel Lines balanced 1/4-inch cables for the cleanest signal. We've got a couple different lengths that we're using to reach different parts of the room. And our DAW is PreSonus Studio One, which includes Dolby Atmos support built right in, and it comes in at a price of less than $20 per month as a subscription. And finally, we are including Sonarworks Sound ID multi-channel with the measurement microphone to help us calibrate and set up the entire system. So how did we do with our budget? We got really close. We came in at $2,052.62 with this collection of gear. But in fact, we could have shaved even more dollars off by going with, say, the Behringer Euphoria interface. And there's also dual cables, such as those from Hosa as well. And this would have gotten us to around $1,800 total, and perhaps even a bit lower, or we could have integrated our stands or whatever we wanted to do. But we definitely hit our target budget of around $2,000 for this complete system. Now let's take a look at how we set it up, and we'll put this system to work. So what we've done is sort of delineated the size of space that you have in, say, an average bedroom, 10 foot by 10 foot-ish or so, 8-foot ceiling. And so the rug sort of delineates where you'd have a rug in that room. And there are two different approaches for placing your speakers for Atmos monitoring. You can either place them in a circle, or you can do what's called orthogonal if you have a room that's longer than it is wide. In our case, we're going to go with a circle. So I've got the bed speakers, which is the 7 main speakers here that do the main surround part of it, all at about the same height, and they're all equidistant from my listening position. They're all 60 inches away and placed on that circle as they go around. Now, just as you do probably at home, we've got some speaker stands, but we use shelves for the sides. So we've got our side surrounds here, and our heights are on top of those shelves, which actually worked out really well. It's pretty good placement there. Now we've run wires, cabling if you will, for everything. We've got power going to our active monitors. And then these monitors actually work in pairs. You connect the two speakers together with a speaker wire, which worked out really well for our side speakers because we didn't have to run power and an additional signal cable up to the top. We just had to run a speaker cable up to those. So that actually worked out great. Now the brain or the hub of the whole thing is the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. And this actually was a pleasant surprise to me. I mean, I know it's a great interface. I've used it a lot. It sounds fantastic, has tons of capabilities. But what I didn't realize is you can actually gang all of the outputs on the single volume control knob. So you actually have control over the whole Atmos system from a single volume control knob, which is super cool. Now the software I'm running, as I mentioned, is Studio One from PreSonus, and that actually comes now with Atmos plugins. It comes with full Atmos support and the Dolby renderer built in, so that's very easy to set up. You simply load things up, create a output that addresses all of your speakers, and you're basically good to go. Super simple. And it even comes with a demo or tutorial Atmos session, so you can set things up and hear exactly what's happening as soon as you're going with Studio One. But a key component to all this is Sonarworks. What Sonarworks does is it allows us to analyze our speakers and basically calibrate the whole system so that the volume levels, everything is lined up properly and all of that. It's very simple to do. You take the reference microphone and put it in your listening position, and then the software actually tells you where to move the microphone. It sends out little test signals, little bleeps and bloops, and when you're in the right spot, it tells you to wait there. It does its sweeps and analyzes the whole thing. It takes a little bit of time with a multi-channel setup like this, but really easy to do. I mean, it really is super simple, and it gives you great results because it calibrates the whole thing. So the big question, we've got our system here that we put together for around $2,000. Does it work? It absolutely works. And I have to say, I'm actually really impressed with how well it works. We were playing some Atmos mixes here off of Apple Music. We also, just for fun, loaded up a couple of movies. We were listening to the trailer for Dune in the Atmos rig. It sounds really good. Now, getting started mixing with Atmos is a lot of fun because all of a sudden you've opened up that whole palette of spatial placement for things that are happening there. Now, from here, we could upgrade our rig if we wanted to. We could add a second set of height speakers, so we had a true 7.1.4 system. Right now we have 7.1.2 with just 2 heights, so we could add a second set of those and have our total of 12 speakers at that point. And we could also continue upgrading the gear if we wanted to. Our monitors, we could upgrade our subwoofer, and so on to continue moving more and more up the food chain, if you will, of quality. But again, I have to come back to, this really sounds good with this setup that we've got going here. Surprisingly good. I'm really been enjoying listening to it. So did we achieve our goal? Were we able to put together an Atmos rig for $2,000 or less? We absolutely did. And in fact, there were some surprises along the way, like the fact that the Focusrite interface allows us to gang all those outputs on a single volume knob, how good the whole thing sounds, and how easy it is to set up the whole Sonarworks calibration system so that the whole thing gets really close to the Dolby spec for this. Now, I'm not going to tell you this is exactly a Dolby spec system, but you can get started mixing in true multi-channel Atmos with a system like this for $2,000 or even less. So I encourage you, if you want to start exploring spatial music, if you want to get into immersive audio, you're doing game composing, you want to work on film scores, or you just want to experiment with the creative possibilities of multi-channel Atmos and spatial music, this is a really cool way to go, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Thanks for joining us today. I'd say this is a challenge that we won. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.